race theory is the new build the wall, drain the swamp, lock her up. It's Dr. Seuss on steroids. It's rage-inducing, race-baiting performative theater, and the Republican base is eating it up. And for the party that's been searching for their new outrage, their next must-have for the one-issue voter, this is very exciting. Except, like much of what Republicans talk about these days, it's not real. It's manufactured outrage and fear-mongering, false victimization to manipulate people for political purposes, and if you care to look at it, it's deeply transparent. Until recently, unless you were in a certain type of academia, no one had heard of critical race theory. It's an intellectual approach to studying institutional racism. It's a college-level course that's been around for about 40 years, with the core idea being that racism is a social construct, not just the product of individual prejudice, but something embedded in our legal systems and political policy. A good example would be in the 1930s, when government officials literally drew lines on maps around areas that they considered poor financial risks, which, more often than not, would explicitly line up with the racial composition of the inhabitants of that area. Then, banks would refuse to offer mortgages to people who lived there. And they would say, like, sorry, we're just following the government's rules. That's CRT. But we don't teach that in K through 12 public schools. Should we? Probably. But people are conflating CRT with plain old history, and conservatives are stretching that idea within an inch of its life, oversimplifying CRT to claim it's basically just about making white people look bad and making American children feel bad about being white. Critical race theory and teaching honest history through diverse perspectives are not the same thing. It's a bad faith misinformation campaign that Republicans see as a winning issue because so few people understand it that they can basically make it into anything they want. And now it's mainstream. Tucker Carlson is on TV calling CRT anti-white training. Laura Ingraham is saying schools want complete and total control to push their woke liberal agenda with American taxpayer funding fiefdoms of radicalization. What does that even mean? Kevin McCarthy just said that CRT is wrong and shouldn't be taught in schools or funded by the government. Well, it's not taught in schools, Kevin, or funded by the government, and frankly, it's not wrong. As of mid-May, 4 states have already outlawed CRT in schools, with dozens of others proposing their own ban. And the bills are so vaguely written that it's unclear what the new rules really are. The states say they're just seeking to restrict instruction and curriculum that centers around divisive concepts. Divisive concepts. And if that kind of arbitrary language doesn't freak you out, it really should. How can you teach about state-sponsored racism like Jim Crow laws, where Black Americans were segregated from white Americans, prevented from voting or holding office, if you're not allowed to talk about race? For that matter, how do you teach about the Civil War? America just made Juneteenth a holiday, but we can't tell the kids why we're celebrating it? The damage of whitewashing history is deeply evident in America. How many of you are feeling angry you weren't taught about the Tulsa Race Massacre, or the Drowned Towns, or the Trail of Tears? Because I know I am. How are anti-CRT laws even constitutional on a First Amendment basis? Ignorance of the truth is a key factor in where America finds itself today. As General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said when the Republican House members tried to bait him into undermining critical race theory, it's offensive to call people woke or Marxist or leftist simply because they are studying theories that are out there. He said, I want to understand white rage. And I'm white. I want to understand it. And to the fury of Matt Gaetz's face, he went on to say, what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind and have some situational understanding about the country for which I am here to defend. So even the military is saying, take your non-issue and hit the road. We will all do better with more understanding, not less. If Germany has the strength to look in the mirror and address their hard truths, so can we. If we only teach the history where we think we look good, then we aren't educating people, we're filling people's heads with propaganda. As Maya Angelou said, history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived. But if faced with courage, it need not be lived again. So, fucking learn from your mistakes.